Thank you. Welcome everybody in this work stream. I'm honored to be kicking off this work stream, the resilience work stream. It is more important than ever. Noah Yuval Harari recently said on a podcast that for the first time in human history, we cannot depend on our elders to predict the future. So it's very unpredictable. What's going to happen? What will happen to the future? We need to navigate our way through and lead in an uncertain world. Today, I want to share with you 8 steps on how we got where we are today, 6 things that we know for certain, and 3 things that you should be doing going forward. First of all, if you look back in the last few years, it has been truly a roller coaster. 1,378 days ago, the first case of COVID was confirmed in Poland. And this became a normal street view. This became normal in our lives. But what also happened is that there was a big opportunity, or the need was there, for governments to start stimulating the economy. A lot of money was pumped in, and obviously what happens when you pump in a lot of money in the economy, it means that demand goes up. And what happens if demand goes up? It means that there's more demand for stuff. Remember the chip shortage, remember all the ports that were full, and the raw materials that were really hard to get. And of course, you've already guessed it, and you already know the story, inflation started coming up. And it started bubbling coming up, and it was hard to get. Everything got pricier and pricier. And then, when that became an issue, Russia invaded the Ukraine. And aside from all the needless suffering then and now, it also meant that Europe went into an energy crisis. Prices of energy went up a lot, on top of already the rising interest or the rising inflation, and prices, everything became very, very expensive. Now there was only one thing that central banks could do, and that is raising interest rates. You need to increase the cost of capital, slow down the economy, and with the idea that if capital is more expensive, that inflation will go down, investments would go down, and obviously that would have an effect on talent. Usually that means that unemployment rates go up, a lot of people lose their jobs, companies are hiring less, but in reality, if we look at what really happens right now, is that the unemployment rate is kind of flat. Companies are still hiring, and we're still looking for talent everywhere. The talent scarcity right now, even though it might have gotten a little bit better, is still much higher than pre-pandemic levels. So what do we do now? It is a hard time in history to think about, okay, what's going to happen next? So we need to start thinking about, what do we know? What are the certainties that we know, even though it's very unpredictable what will happen in the future? First of all, demographics. It's often overlooked, but we know that we're an aging population. It's almost a boring story that we start forgetting about it. But if we think about the working population, or the people in a working population age in Poland, over the next 15 years, we'll have 5% people less in 15 years. So that's going to be an issue. Not only does it mean that talent scarcity is going to be here to stay, it also means, already mentioned, that we have multiple generations in a workforce. How do you manage that? How do you handle that? It's going to be something that we had never had before. Also, we talked about generative AI already, but the logical result is that the demand for these type of skills will go up massively. This is a graph from the demand in the US, and zooming into that a little bit more, you see that generative AI was basically not a topic at the start of the year, and from nothing, it's skyrocketing very high. So how are you going to make sure that you get that generative AI talent in your company so you can start that AI transformation in your company? This also, of course, relates to the skills in companies. Skills are changing even more rapid as it has ever been. It's harder to reskill, but it is the biggest necessity right now. If somebody starts a university degree today, 4 years later when they enter the workforce, it might already be redundant. The boundless workforce, we talked about already about remote work and hybrid work. It is here on the rise, and you see that some companies in the US are bringing people back to the office, but the trend is definitely there. And it's not only about hybrid or remote work, it's also about the contract forms. In what way will you work? Do I want to be a freelancer, or do I really want to be a permanent employee? We also know the conscious workforce. People want to work on the topics that matter to them. They're less worried about job stability, they're more focused on making an impact in the world. Complexity. We know that complexity is on the rise. We know that legislation, regulation will get more and more complex. How do you manage that as a company? That's very difficult things. So, how do you deal with that? There are 3 things that I think you should be doing. First of all, understand the DNA of your company. Why are people working there? What motivates them to work there? Also, why would people not want to work there? At Randstad, we're very focused on understanding our clients and making sure that we can make the right match. It's not only about if it matches on paper, it will work. We see if you do that, attrition rates will go through the roof, and it's really hard to retain your talent. But it's about understanding, are the core values and the core drivers of the people that you're looking for, are they the same as the rest of the people in your company? Also, if you look at organizing your data, when we look at our companies that we work with, I have to make a confession, I'm not that impressed by how people organize their people data. Their people data is often scattered. They often say, oh, I'll bring in this one tool and that will fix it. But the reality is that is very difficult, and we need to separate that data strategy from the tools, and we need to start to understand who do we have, what talent do we have in the company, what's the gap that we need, and how and where can we find this talent. But maybe even more important, you also need to enjoy the ride, right? It's going to be a continued roller coaster ride, and that's going to be difficult. And if you don't enjoy that and resist the change, it will be super hard to manage that. So enjoy that ride, and I hope you're going to enjoy today and learn a lot and inspire, and hopefully inspire each other as well. Thank you.
ABSL Summit. Lead the way. Stay ahead.